Thank you. My name is Oyebanji Akins, and you can call me DJ Fresh. We're live on CTDAmongblacks. And on this lovely day, shout out to all our fans, followers, people that subscribe on our YouTube. I want to do a quick shout out, and it's been a wonderful journey, almost like 3 months now, and we already have like 1,000 followers, and I hope you still have more than that. And without no wasting our time on this lovely day, we're gonna be doing another episode about language disconnection, and I have with me my wonderful friend, sister from back home. Her name is Joy, and she's been wonderful. I want to say I appreciate her coming down because I know out of no time for you that might be listening, today is Monday, and you know what it is in Monday in America. People don't joke with their time. So it's a privilege. We're having her on our podcast today, and we'll be doing the audio version. And for you listening, I promise you one thing you're going to learn, and you'll be more aware of some things you know or you don't know about we Africans, especially Nigerians, United States. So, Joy, would you like to say hi to our audience?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. And for you listening, you can check us on YouTube, on all platforms. Social media platform is still CTD Among Blacks, and our website is www.ctdamongblack. And if you have any suggestion or any questions or any reviews or anything you would like to, maybe you want to sponsor with us, you could always reach us at ctdamongblack@gmail.com. Why not wasting our time? Jay, I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions just to hear your own views and how you say things. And the first question is going to say, it's go like this. How has the experience living in America affected your connection to your native Nigerian language?
Okay, so this is individualized, so I'm talking based on my experience.
Yes.
Let me start by saying I only speak English.
Wow.
Yes.
For real?
Yes. So I guess I can't really relate to that in that specific sense, but I don't want to call it like a regret, but it's something I always wish that I was able to speak my language, but unfortunately I don't. I don't know if I was back home if it would have made a difference. Maybe not, but...
How does it feel when you come across somebody from where you're from and they kind of try to speak your language and you tell them you don't? Do you understand the language? You can't just... You don't understand and you can't even speak.
Neither, yes.
Wow. That's wonderful. I think that's, to me, though, I don't think anything is bad about that. It's just, as long as you're fine with it. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's just something that I would have appreciated if I was able to.
So,
I mean, there are multiple factors just looking back on why it didn't happen. Both my parents are from different states. So my dad was from Cross River State, and then my mom is from Edo State. So I guess that dynamic kind of made a huge difference in terms of like them speaking it in the home. I don't know, but that's my assumption. And then my dad passed when I was 8. So
may his soul rest in perfect peace.
Amen. So I wasn't as close to my dad's side as I would have liked. I mean, I do have cousins and relatives, but it just wasn't spoken in terms of my language, so I just never had that connection in that sense. So.
Wow. Anyway, I'm really glad you shared that experience with us, because this might sound funny to you, but I'm a Yoruba guy and I can't read my language too. I can only speak. If you tell me to read, I can't even read. And I think for me though, I can still understand. But that's it. I can't write, I can't read, I can only speak. But when I speak, you really think I really know what I'm saying. But
yeah,
that's all I have.
Language is very unique. There are people who read and write but can't speak, and there are people who speak but can't write, or there are people who do both. So it's interesting to kind of see the interplay. I
don't. This is just me. I don't think you really miss a lot since you're in America right now, anyway, because we speak English. So it's not like a big deal like that to me. It makes a lot of sense when you can really say one or two words with somebody from your end without not trying to speak in English. But to me, I really don't think it has any kind of value like that, except to kind of put some kind of connection to who we are. I think for me, I don't think there's any big deal. Thank you for telling us that. So since that is how it is, I think I'm going to jump a couple of questions to move to the one that you can really give me an answer to. So the question is I'm going to ask you is: have you ever encountered any stereotypes of misconcepts about your language, which I know you don't really speak, but what about the culture while living in America, and how do you address or challenge them? You know, being a Nigerian American, and have you ever experienced being stereotyped about being a Nigerian? Have you, how do you address it? Have you ever had one? And what are the challenges that you have with it?
Well, for the most part, I try to keep a level head and not take things too personal or too hard, unlike, some people. But I guess one thing that kind of stood out a couple of times was, maybe I'd introduce myself and, say I'm from Nigeria or I'm Nigerian, and then they would be like, oh, you speak very good English for a Nigerian. And
for real?
Yes, and that's happened more than once. And, in my mind, I'm just like, well, English is our first, is the language that's generally spoken there. But a lot of people, I don't know if it's based off of ignorance or just a lack of awareness. And so I guess the assumption is, of course, we have multiple languages and stuff like that, but they just don't know that much about the country and the culture. And so it's just like to see someone who is educated or speaks very good English is very surprising to a lot of people who are not Black.
But I think in your own case, it's a blessing though, because I can tell from how you speak. Maybe because you don't speak our dialect, I don't know. But your English is more clean than my own English. You pick it right, everything's smooth, and it's unfortunate you guys can't see her face, but everything she says, she come with a smile, and that's a very pure thing I've seen her that she's been in our midst right now. But I think it's for me, because I got a very strong accent. It shows a lot, and they always ask me like, can you speak slow? Because I feel like.
And that was another thing too. They'd be like, "Oh, well, you don't have the Nigerian accent," and
yeah.
I'm like, "Well, what is the accent?" Because we have different languages, right? And so when people speak the different languages, you hear different accents that come from each tribe and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, what is the Nigerian language? I remember one time we had this handyman come to the house, and my cousin and I were talking between ourselves, and then he paused and was like, what were we just speaking? And my cousin, we looked at him and we were like, English. And he was like, no, he's never heard that before, that it sounds so different, but so there's always that stereotype sometimes.
And thank you for saying that, because actually I think that's the main focus of what we're trying to do. Part of what we have our podcast about, bringing awareness and bridging the gap about how we speak and how we choose our words. And sometimes just because of how we speak, I've encountered where American would tell me like, y'all don't speak good English, and I'm like, no, I think we speak the right English. American have slangs, and I've been into that situation where they make me understand like, no. And sometimes I've seen where, I don't know, maybe you use that, when a Nigerian is going out, like, I'm coming back. When you tell an American, they tell like, what do you mean you're coming back? Like, nah, you don't say you're coming back. I think there's a way they say their own way, like, no, don't tell me you're coming back. I can't remember
like
how
maybe
to say.
I'll be back or something.
Something like that. So, and I think that play a big role in business, jobs, relationship, a friendship, family, everything, because sometimes things we tend to say in our own mind, they don't say it that way sometimes, and what it's taking might not be what we are trying to tell them. And if you don't really articulate and tell them very well, they're taking what they think you're saying, and that have affected a lot of friendship. And by the time they know, a lot of things have really pile up on that same thoughts, and like, you should have told me like this, should have do this, should have do that. But thank you for sharing that with me. And my next question is going to be, how important do you think it is for a Nigerian immigrant or diaspora to preserve native language, and what benefit challenges associated with language preservation? Now, I know you don't speak.
Oh, no, but I can relate to that question.
Thank you. So can you share some view on what you have about that?
I think it's very important to be able to preserve our culture, especially when you're not in the environment that encourages it, or you're not in a place where you daily experience the culture, the language, the people, because like now I was just thinking, my kids would not be able to speak my language because I don't speak it. So there's no one to teach them. And so, gradually that's just going to fade away. And for me, that's something I think about, from time to time when it does come up. So I think it's really important because our culture is just special. So at church on Sunday, we had International Sunday, and it was just so interesting, like to see the different cultures and people appreciating it. I think one thing that I've observed just being here in the U.S. is that, I don't know if it's consciously or unconsciously, but we've been kind of taught to suppress who we are as Nigerians or as Blacks to kind of fit in to the society. Of course, fitting in is good and stuff like that, but we shouldn't have to give up who we are, our culture, our language, just to accommodate other people. For example, if you go to a different country or a different continent, whether it's Asia or Europe, they speak their languages with pride. And whether it's an American or whoever comes there has to work towards either getting a translator or, whatever the case might be. So we shouldn't have to give up who we are just because we're in a different land. I think it's something that should be appreciated and preserved as best as we can.
Thank you for that. I just want to add a little thing. I think you're right, and I'm adding my own view to that because I feel like the more we can embrace who we are, it helps the growth of our generation to come to really know how to relate with it. Because irrespective of what it is, the history about Americans, a lot of people are brought down by slavery and stuff like that. But at the same time, I didn't mean they have the connection to be able to relate themselves to who we are back home. That might have helped a lot of them to see how things better. Because I have a lot of American friends that tell me, like, I don't even know where I'm from, so I'm not about to really disturb myself with that. So for us having the privilege of having, where to trace ourselves to, you're right about saying we should try to preserve it in a way where our next generation can be more embracing. And like you said, that's one of the reasons why we have our podcast, because I always tell people what we're doing right now, what you're doing right now today is not for today, it's for the next generation coming after us. Like having a sense of trying to listen to some things. I know somebody have said this, and hopefully we can keep having people that will really relate and, embrace and grow our culture. Because I tell people, I'm for today, which I know for a fact, I think our podcast is the only one that's trying to really bring people like you to let people know back home what we go through and our way of life and things we really experience. Because you only see that in movie or music. You don't get to listen to things like this. We don't have. And I think if we have, it's more about the bad things that happen back home. We really don't have anybody talking about Nigerian struggle in America. We talk about it through music, maybe in sport, but I've never really seen people coming down to talk about it. Celebrities talk about it, that's it. And to me, I always tell people, like, whatever celebrity is saying is not a real thing that happened to daily life of people. The celebrity only have the medium of saying a little things, and their brand might not even allow them to say too much about the thing. So people like me, like you, have the benefit of really telling people what we go through, and hopefully whoever that's listening can be able to pick one or two things. My next question is gonna be, I think I'm gonna be asking you, like, how important do you think is for a Nigerian immigrant to preserve our native language, and what benefit challenge? I think that's what I asked you just now. Oh, my bad, sorry. Do you actively seek out opportunities to engage with Nigerian language culture in America? And if so, how do you do that? I know you're right here though. So do you think you actively try to want to, be in the midst of people that has to do things? Just like you said in church on Sunday?
Yeah.
You guys did. But is this something you always willing to want to engage, or you don't like to engage?
I think I do like to engage because it's a huge part of me, especially moving over to the United States as an adult. Pretty much the culture, everything was already ingrained in me. So it's a huge part of me that I can't just pretend does not exist. And so, yeah, I mean, if there are like events that are happening, fairs, I go for those kind of things because it's just another opportunity to meet other people from Nigeria, just the culture in general, to learn more about like the food, the different languages, the clothing, because things are out there, but if you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, even So moving from Atlanta to Texas was a huge adjustment because just the culture and the population is completely different.
What do you mean it's different? Like,
I guess I would say not Texas, but maybe San Antonio specifically is more Hispanic oriented compared to Atlanta, where it's, I mean, blacks are everywhere.
So since you moved down from Atlanta to Texas, you haven't been to Dallas, you haven't been to Houston?
Oh, I have, but I mean, like San Antonio, you know, it's just a little different, and
Why?
so I've had to like start re-exploring and finding things that I can relate to, like going to places where there's like African music or African food or just that community. Having to find it here, it was easier back home where I was, you know, it was all around me. And so when there's an event, we already know what's happening. We know the kind of people that would show up and stuff like that. So I think it's important. I know I work towards like actively being a part of it and not, you know, being ashamed of it or pretending that I'm not Nigerian. I'm very proud of who I am.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I think I'm going to dab a little bit out of a language disconnection just to, based on what you said. What has been your experience coming from Nigeria to United States about the cultural shock? You know, how have you been able to adjust, like you said, moving from Atlanta down to Texas, but at the same time, how has it been moving from Nigeria to United States of America?
It's been an adjustment. I would say I'm still adjusting because just change, you know, in itself doesn't happen overnight, right? Yeah, there was definitely the culture shock, just seeing how things were done differently from back home. Of course, there's a lot more order. Things are working here. You can't just behave anyhow. You know, you have to comply with like the rules and the regulations. Otherwise, you already know what would happen. But I think one of the huge things was, so I came here for school, and so even that in itself was different. I remember one time I had this classmate, and she really didn't like the grade that she got. You know, not like they did her an injustice or anything. She just didn't pass, and for her it wasn't good enough. And she took it all the way to like the higher ups and made them fire the professor. And I kid you not, they asked her to take like a leave of absence and to come back after our class had kind of graduated. And it just made me realize the difference from back home. Like, you can't. You don't have that audacity to do that kind of thing. We were more so trained to just grin and bear it and just endure whatever was presented. And so in a way, it kind of helped because I was like, wow, if I could go through all of that, I mean, this is a breeze for me to just, you know, breeze right through school.
But do you think if a Nigerian tried that in America, do you think they will get the same privilege, like the same?
That's a very good question. Well, I never tried anything, so I can't speak to that. But, and I think we were just, our upbringing is also a factor that's also different. We just were not brought up to
challenge all
this. And so also it took a while for me to have to adjust. There were instances where I had to learn to like speak up, even though it wasn't convenient, but it was just more so this is a different environment, this is a different culture. You have to learn to fight and speak up for yourself as opposed to just suffer in silence. Yeah, So
I want to ask this, though. You've been able to give us a wonderful review for Cultural Shock, but I'm trying to know the other side of you not being able to see Nigeria every time, you not being able to, you know, have the kind of food you want to eat.
Oh, yes.
So how does that been for you, you know, not being able to see every family member like you want to? You can't just go out and say, I want to see my childhood friend. Like, hey, where you at? You know?
Yeah.
How has that been? Being here where everything, you know, from school, I know you're working now. How do you think that has been for you in your own personal experience?
It's been hard.
Wow.
Very hard. With the food, of course, that was like the first thing that I missed. But I cook, so that kind of helps. I still cook like Nigerian food. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
But it's not the same because there are just some things that you just can't exactly, or even if you make it here, it's just not the same as back home. The taste is different. The ingredients are different. So that part has been huge. having to build new friendships, it's like starting from scratch. And it's a lot harder when you're an adult than when you're kids and, you just run around and make friends with everybody around. But I've done my best to like maintain that level of connection with my friends and family back home. So I try not to let distance be an excuse, even though it is challenging, but doing the best I can, keeping in touch as best I can, and but it's hard. It's an adjustment that
So what have you been able to? How have you been able to balance that part of your life? What have you been? What are the process? What are the things you do that makes you, balance that part of your life about the cultural shock, about things being done, about how they see us, about the food, about the friendship. How do you balance it in your own life that you really don't miss too much about being back home? Because I know it's good down here because of the job is nice and everything like that, but how do you balance that part of your life?
I think for your peace and sanity, you have to find that balance in some type of way, whatever that looks like for you. Otherwise, you just live a frustrated life, So like I said, find African restaurants as best I can to still get that little bit of taste of home. Keeping an ear and an eye out for like African hangouts or events that are happening. It's another avenue to connect. I can't remember. I think it was a couple months back. There was this fair event that was happening. I just saw the flyer randomly, and I was like, let me go. And I went, and it was really nice because there were a lot of Nigerians who showed up, a lot of restaurants that came up, a lot of clothing stores that came up. So it was just nice to see the culture in that space. So buy the food, buy the clothes, meet new people, connect with people. I met the DJ there, and I was asking him, I was like, do you know of any like African lounges that actually play like African music? Because sometimes, I just like to go out and just...
So wait, you're trying to tell me in San Antonio they don't have clubs, lounge that play Nigerian music?
I'm still exploring, I mean,
You've been here for how many months now?
Over a year.
Hey, I'm not supposed to use the word.
Over a year, but then
you haven't found one?
I haven't had the time to explore.
Okay,
let me put it as that. Not that they don't exist.
Yes, right, that makes sense.
They're out there. You just, like I said, you don't know what you don't know. So just finding all of those things just gets you a little bit closer to home and helps you deal with everything. But the loneliness is still going to be there. The times where you just miss people, like you said, you can't just up and, I want to go visit whoever. But just making the best out of the situation and just understanding that change is necessary in life. And yeah.
I want to ask this question. It's kind of tricky a little bit. And the question is, except from in church, because I know, I was being privileged to be in your church this Sunday, and it was wonderful. I don't know, this is the first time I was coming, but I see people dressing different. I'm like, dang, this is so nice. I see the Mexican too. I think there was a Mexican. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's really nice that they allow different culture to, bring the presence of God. But except from church, how has it been easy to connect with people? Is it only the church, or you've been except maybe social media? And if you try, do you think Nigerians are willing to connect with you, just like how we do back home?
I guess it's kind of harder just because of the way the community here is. It's more individualized, where everybody just minds their business, just because we're both black or just because we're Nigerians doesn't mean we can't be friends, because I don't know you like that. But you meet people wherever and you make friends wherever. That's kind of how I see life. I remember a friend of mine, she went to like a Walmart, and so she's Ethiopian, right? And so she ran into this Ethiopian guys, and they kind of connected, and they recommended some nice spots that they could all hang out at. So you meet people at different places, and you either make the decision to connect or
you don't.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you're still listening, we have Joy today on our podcast. It's been wonderful having her. And like I said in the beginning, you can follow us. You can check us on YouTube. It's CTDAmongblacks. On Instagram is CTDAmongblacks. And for every episode we've had in the past, you can check us on our www.ctdamongblack.com. And moving forward, I'm just going to ask you this question for the privilege of people that are back home and for the privilege of people that are trying to come into the country. And the question go like this: based on your experience moving from Nigeria to United States, what would you like to tell people back home, not your family member, that you feel like it's gonna help them? Basically, when you come in, there's a way you thought American was, and when you get down, it wasn't what I'm sure it wasn't what you expect. So, having the privilege of want to talk to somebody you don't know randomly, what would you tell them? Like, how has it been? Like, if you come in, this is what I want you to prepare your mind for. This is what I want you to think about before coming. So, can you give our audience your own view about something like that?
I think one of the first things I would say is to keep an open mind, because just as how you go on vacation to a different country and you see the culture and the uniqueness. So say, for example, you go to Dubai. A lot of people like to go there for vacation and whatnot. The culture there is completely different, right? And so you're not going there with the mentality of home. You're going there knowing that it's something different. So once you have that perspective, it helps you settle in quicker, as opposed to, I think one thing that a lot of people, and I might be wrong,
Is your view?
Yes, is the American dream, where people think everything is rosy and peachy. Yes, things work here, but every country has its issues, just like Nigeria has its issues, America has its issues. There's no perfect country that doesn't have challenges that people deal with. So I think keeping that in mind helps you to come here with a more realistic expectations. Yes, you're still going to experience culture shock. You're still going to experience the adjustment period and adjustment phase that could take years for you to even feel like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of this. But once you're able to keep an open mind and you're open to adjusting, as well as accepting help when it's offered, or advice when it's given, I think helps to make life a lot easier, as opposed to you come in with a specific mindset that no one's going to change your mind, and then you come here and life changes your mind for you.
I think that's another thing Nigerians struggle with a lot too, because a lot of Nigerians are coming here with a mindset of how we do things back home, and they're stuck with that way, and I think that affects of how they want to live in this place too.
Yeah.
So my next question is, what would you like to tell an American that would like to be a friend with Nigerians? Now, why I ask you that is this. There's sometimes I have American friends where there's a way they perceive to see us. And what would you like to tell those people, being a Nigerian, being American, that you don't know them, but you like to tell them, like, okay, next time when you come across a Nigerian, have such things in mind and be more open-minded, just like how you said to Nigerians. So can you give our audience that are more Black Americans or Black that are listening?
There's a lot to know about us. Don't be shy to ask questions. If you don't know if you're curious about something, ask. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to like different cultures merging, it's just all about respect and an openness to learn. Once you have that, it makes life a lot easier, as opposed to you come with your preconceived notions. Keeping an open mind and being open to learn and being curious is not a bad thing. But when you come with a specific stereotype or a preconceived notion about a culture or person, or from one singular experience, that kind of taints the whole thing for everyone else in that culture. So yeah.
I like the last one you said, like, don't be stuck with one experience you have. Don't let that be one thing you want to hold on to about Nigerians. I think the last question I'm going to ask you, I'm going to put it like this. For Nigerians, they're already in America, but they're still struggling to embrace, like you said. They're still finding it hard to believe in this system. They're still, bringing more of Nigerian back into their own world. What would you like to tell them?
It's not easy. I'm not going to lie and tell you. Like I said, it's not always going to be rosy and peachy. But one thing I've seen here is that if you're dedicated and focused, the system works. You pay your dues, the system works for you, but it takes time. So don't expect a turnover overnight. I mean, miracles do happen, but at the same time, I think it's good to keep doing what you're doing. If you're on the right track, it will definitely pay off. The system works. You just have to work the system too, and just be focused and give it time. But in time, it does pay off for sure.
Thank you very much for that. I said last question, but I think I have one more I want to add. And I'm sorry to say this. Now, the reason why I want to ask you when you're saying this, it kind of pop in my head is the fact that you're Nigerian, you're from Nigeria, but unfortunately, you don't speak our language. And I've been pretty opportune to come across Nigerian that was born in America, but they haven't been to Nigeria. Unfortunately, they don't speak our language too. And for you, how you've been able to perceive yourself and you still embrace the culture, what would you like to tell those people? Nigerian with a Nigerian parent that are born in America, but they don't speak our language. They can't even speak one word. I would like you to share how you, even though you said it's challenging for you, but I would like you to share your view with those people, those next generation, this particular generation that are out there that's still struggling with want to be in the Nigerian community, but they don't speak our language. So, what would you like to, in your own view and experience?
I mean, language is just one piece of an individual's culture. There's so much more than language that makes up a person's culture. So I don't think you should let that deter you. If at the end of the day it boils down to interest, are you really interested in being integrated into that culture? If the answer is yes, then that's all it takes. That interest is you trying out foods. If you want to learn the language specifically, there's tons of avenues to learn. I have a friend who is here, but he's learning to speak Yoruba, and he has a teacher, and he goes to class and learns the language.
Wow, that's wonderful.
For me, it was just, I had my own issues with why I didn't end up speaking. I mean, I mentioned the first part there, but there were other opportunities that just didn't work out. So if you're interested and determined, anything is possible. The sky is really just the starting point. There's so many ways to access the culture, the people, just keeping an open mind and knowing that, the language is not the only determinant of you being an individual. Plus, there are people who are here who've never been back home and speak the language as well. So it's all about interest. If you're interested and you have parents that speak the language, they can start teaching you, even if it's just the basics or just, greetings and stuff like that. Or you have friends, you can, commandeer one of your friends to start teaching you the language if the language is something that you're interested in. But just be interested and explore, and you'll find what you're looking for.
Thank you very much, Joy. It's been a wonderful having you on our podcast. It's been a wonderful sharing your view. It's been wonderful having such a wonderful Nigerian that doesn't speak Nigerian, but you said a last thing which I'm so happy about is the fact that language shouldn't be the only thing you could connect with Africans or with your root. It's more than that, and that's very deep for me because people, I think we do too much of putting just too much focus on just the language, and like you said, there's a lot you could gain, not just the language, and as much as you're more open-minded to it, it's going to go a long way. So thank you very much out of your no time to be here, and shout out to all San Antonio, shout out to Cross River, and you're from I want to remember your mom's side you mentioned again? Edo State. So for if you're an Edo, you're listening, Joy has been here to represent in a way she called, and it's been a privilege having you on our podcast. I really appreciate it. I remain fresh, and my name is Oyebanji Akins, and this is CTDAmongblacks. And like I always say before we go, it might not make sense right now, but trust me, if you're doing the right thing, staying on the right track, it's definitely going to make sense in the future. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've been able to open your mind to some things you know and the one you don't know, and hopefully you could join us on the next podcast. And till next, thank you. To see you next time. Thank you very much.